I am. This is how it works in our household. So number 2, I was hoping you get an opportunity to network and meet with folks. One of the things that so a lot of this event so far has exceeded my expectation. The host facility, the Blind Center, amazing. The Millionaire guests and speakers yesterday, amazing. The one piece that I couldn't control was you. Sometimes people in the audience are little wallflowers and they just sit in their chair and they don't talk to anybody. When we had breaks and we did things, you guys were engaged, you were meeting people, you were meeting new people. So applause to you. That doesn't always happen. So a lot of this was because of you, so congratulations to you. And then the last thing I was hoping for was for Instagram to blow up. We did okay. I want to do better today. So, if you take a picture with me, you take a picture with one of the millionaires, you take a picture of new friends, new neighbors, whatever, if it's not on Instagram, it didn't freaking happen. You could tag me, one rental at a time. You could use the pound ORAT, ORAAT. I hope this audience can double yesterday. You got me? Yeah. All right, let's see what happens. So we are going to do a special announcement, a special thank you for someone in this audience. There were a couple of interviews or discussions that happened in the last 6 months that were not my doing. 100%, I had nothing to do with them. That doesn't happen a lot. Now, you probably don't know which interviews or which discussions I'm talking about. I'll tell you. But I want to call Jen Tam to the stage. Jen, right there in the blue jacket. Let's keep clapping until she gets up here. Jen, come on. I'm going to just embarrass you if you don't come. So, this young lady right here, unbeknownst to myself, personally reached out to Danielle DiMartino Booth and her team and hounded them for months to get that interview scheduled. Not to be outdone, she was instrumental in setting up that interview with Ken McElroy and his wife. Right there. So Jen, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. You've done amazing stuff. You really helped me. I appreciate everything you've done, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. Likewise.
There you go. Shout out Jen. Woohoo! Again, it's really amazing when the audience and the community says, you know, you need to be on these bigger platforms. You need to get these bigger folks. And she reached out to me in an email and said, you want to interview Danielle DiMartino Booth? Here's the process. I'm like, of course I do. And then she's like, I got this Ken McElroy guy. You know him? Yeah, a little bit. Right? He helped me in the beginning. Yeah, it's just small time. So the amount of follow-up, the thoughtfulness, the giving, Jen, the entire audience appreciates you. Thank you for doing that. Wonderful. All right, so yesterday, opening episode, was rock solid. Jason and Jen, they were always first. As an agenda speaker, you know the hardest interview or the hardest stage to do? In Vegas, opening day 2. It's not lunch. It's opening day 2. So I knew as soon as he said yes, who was going to open day 2. It's going to be Coach Carson. And one of the things that I love about Coach Carson, he wrote this book called Small and Mighty Investor. You ever heard of it? I got a note from somebody after that book was released saying, hey, do you know you're in his book? Because I know Coach Carson. We've done a couple of things over the years together. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm in his book? And he's like, hey, go look at page, I don't know what page, 187 or whatever it was. And he's like, I like this guy, one rental at a time, because he talks about getting to 4 and all those things. I'm like, I love this guy, right? Because we speak the same language. We aren't here talking about 100 or 50 or any of this. We want all of you to have a better financial future, and we know all the garbage out there about you got to go to 1,000, and if you're not a billionaire, you suck, and all the other freaking garbage. I love Coach Carson. He's here to talk to us today. The man, the myth, the legend right there.
He dropped the mic already. All right. All right, good morning, everybody. The 8 o'clock Vegas crowd. I love it. Very good. We're going to have fun this morning. I'm going to talk about the small, mighty investor. That's my topic. But really, I'm going to talk about financial freedom. Is anybody interested in that? And in addition, what financial freedom means to me, I'm going to talk about things like 2-hour work weeks instead of the 4-hour work week, because we got to outdo the 4-hour work week. 2-hour real estate work week, and owning fewer properties instead of more properties. That's really what this is all about. So a little counterintuitive, but we're going to have some fun with that. And I want to start off by telling you a story. If you've read my book, you've heard this story. But it's a story of 3 investors, and they were 3 couples, actually. And they were to meet up just like this. But then 15 years later, they had stayed in touch. They had a mastermind. They got, they lived all over the country, but they helped each other out. And 15 years later, they're like, we've all been pretty successful with our real estate businesses. Let's take a trip. Let's go on a cruise in Europe. And they're going to go in the Mediterranean and see Italy and Greece. And so they decided to do this. It's a 2-week trip. And I want to tell you a little bit about each of these couples because the story of the details of their story is always interesting. So the first couple, Liz and Tom, lived in Middle America, St. Louis, where my wife's from, so I like to talk about St. Louis. They're now in their 50s, and they had a pretty simple approach to rental properties. They had 10 rental properties in 15 years later, but they did it nice, slow, and steady. They didn't set the world on fire. They didn't buy dozens of properties in 1 year, just one rental at a time. Anybody ever heard of that? And they self-managed their properties. Very simple. They didn't complicate things. They didn't use fancy financing. I like to talk about creative financing, seller financing. They didn't do any of that. They just kind of nice 20% down, boring approach to rental properties, one rental at a time. But what they did after the end of 15 years, the last few years, they paid off all the debt on their 10 rental properties. And I'm going to give you some ideas how you might, if you want to do that, how you might do that. But the point I want to make here is this couple, Liz and Tom, had $10,000 per month coming in, $120,000 per year from their 10 simple little rental properties. Could anybody, just raise a hand, could anybody retire off of $10,000 per year? Not everybody. Not everybody? Okay. $240,000 a year? $500,000 a year? Raise hands. Okay, I know we got some people who wear fancy shoes in this room. I've got hiking boots on. I'm in the $10,000 a month crowd. But that was their numbers. So couple number 1, Liz and Tom. Second couple, Tiffany and Darius, grew up in North Carolina, ended up moving to Oakland, where they lived, in California. So any long-distance California investors investing across the country? All right, I know a couple of here. I thought Anthony. No, Anthony's local. This couple, they're in their early 40s, have kids, and they invest in multi-unit properties in North Carolina. And they have 50 units. They did it a little bit differently. They didn't pay off the debt on all their properties. They have a nice conservative portfolio with a lot of equity, but they have some long-term debt on these multifamily properties. But the same result. They make $10,000 per month, $120,000 per year, so they have enough money to take this trip as well. Couple number 3, Lauren and Mike, is the financially and real estate-wise the most successful of the 3 couples. They've kind of set the world on fire. They are from Nevada, local Las Vegas folks. They started investing in Nevada, but they were really successful here flipping houses, buying multifamily properties. They decided to expand this a little bit, as often happens. People who are successful in one place might say, hey, other people want to loan us money. Let's syndicate. Let's do this thing called syndication where you raise money from other people and you go out and buy a lot of properties. And so what they did was they own a piece of thousands of rental units. And so that piece of thousands of rental units means they have a lot more cash flow than Liz and Tom or Tiffany and Darius. They have, at least for right now, it's going to get higher. They have $60,000 per month or $720,000 per year. So plenty of money to take the trip, a lot more financially successful than the other couples. But here's where it gets interesting. So the end of the trip, 2 weeks at the end, Liz and Tom say, hey, this was amazing. Everybody had a great time. They all agreed this was a great time. They said, how about we extend the trip? How about we go for another 2 weeks? There's another cruise we found, and we could go to another part of Europe. Wouldn't that be amazing? Liz and Tom are like, hey, we have 10 houses. Our tenants are there. It's full. We have no issues going on there. We're good to go. They check the list. They want to stay. Tiffany and Darius are like, well, our kids are on summer break. We don't have any big activities at home. Okay, let's do it. We'll do the trip as well. Third couple, Lauren and Mike, remember, financially the most successful couple, they want to go as well, but they have a few things going on back at home. They have to go they've been invited to speak at an event because they need to raise money for their next syndication round, and they have to be kind of hard to cancel that. They have an employee who is supposedly running things for one of their property management units who they need to fire, and who's actually going to leave, and they're going to have to go replace that person. So they need to go interview some people in person. And they just have some issues with a new property they're buying. There's an inspection, and they need to go and be there in person to make sure everything's okay. So long story short, Lauren and Mike have to decline. They say, regretfully, we can't go on the trip. So I heard this story, a version of this story, at one of my first events when I was a brand new investor at 23 years old. This story struck me because it kind of put forward a different idea of success. In one idea, the most properties, the most money equals the most successful. But if you look at it a little differently, what's the currency that Lauren and Mike really didn't have? There's more than just money. There's time, and there's flexibility. And so I actually, this is not my idea. I read a book called The 4-Hour Work Week back in 2006, which had this idea that there's multiple currencies in life. You can name the currencies, whatever are important for you, but there are at least things like this. You gotta have money. Like, money's great. I'm not gonna bash making money in this room. I love making money. I think we all should make money. But I think we'd all agree that the things you wanna do in life, what freedom means to you, requires time. You gotta have free time to do it. You gotta have flexibility. If you wanna travel in particular, I'm gonna talk a little bit about my travel, and flexibility is necessary. If you make a bunch of money and you make hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, but you're chained to a desk or to a business that doesn't let you leave, how free is that? And so what this story really demonstrated to me was that there's a different way to think about wealth. And here we go. In some cases, when you build a big business, what we all, growing and scaling, that's kind of the name of the game in real estate these days in business. It's just real popular to scale to the moon and, Grant Cardone and take it big and 10X. And, why wouldn't you? You're not pushing yourself enough. You're not like pushing yourself to your abilities. And that's cool. Like, I like the idea of pushing yourself. But there's this thing called Frankenstein in the business beast that when you get a big business that seems like it runs on its own, there's always the business beast. Remember this. Have you ever heard of the story of Frankenstein? The whole, like the original story of Frankenstein. It was a scientist who was a brilliant scientist, and he learned how to make things come alive, like inanimate objects. And so he decides to make this creature called Frankenstein. And you remember the whole story, the lightning, and Frankenstein sits up. Well, originally it was supposed to be like a brilliant invention that was going to help people. It was going to be a helpful creature. And then the thing stood up and started chasing him around and killing his family, and it was like a horror story. Well, that's actually what happens with a lot of entrepreneurs. We hear the survivors. We hear the stories of the big businesses that are successful and the people have these wonderful lives. But what you don't hear about is all the fallout, the people who had Frankenstein eat their time, who at best, even if they made money, have no life, and their health is compromised. And so that's the story I want to talk about. I want to talk about, well, what if there was a different way where you didn't have to deal with a Frankenstein, where you had enough money, but you had an abundance of time, abundance of flexibility. Would that not be a little bit better approach for some of us? It was for me. Yeah, anybody else? Good? Nice. I'll take that. I'll take the ovation. So that's what I want to talk about. I want to give you an idea of the business model, what that would look like. And I want to tell you my story too. This is my story, my sprint up the real estate mountain. So I kind of have to touch the fire. I don't know about some of you. Like, I can go listen to this kind of stuff, but I have to is it really hot? Let me touch it. Let me try this. And so I went to seminars early in my career, and I was excited about it. I was ambitious. I wanted to grow. And I have a business partner, and the two of us started buying properties and getting good at buying property. And we mainly flipped properties early on. I graduated from college. I played football in college at Clemson University. I was a middle linebacker. I tried to go to the NFL. I see some booing in the room. What's going on here? Yeah. Who are we talking about up here? What team? What? But so I thought I'd go to the NFL. That was kind of a dream that got shattered pretty quickly, brought down to earth. Probably a good thing long run. So I started investing in real estate, flipping houses. I had $1,000, and I had a business partner. I lived in his spare bedroom, started finding deals. But I had this goal of making $1 million per year. And I don't know why I had this goal, but I was at a seminar like this, and somebody's like, I make $1 million a year. I flip 50 houses per year. And my business partner and I looked at each other like, we got $1,000. That sounds good. let's do that. Let's do $1 million a year. I don't know why, but we did. And so fast forward from 2003 to 2007, we had 33 acquisitions closings in 2007. So 33 properties. We were closing all the time. Most of those were flips, but we also bought some rental properties. We used a lot of seller financing, creative financing, all good, right? 33 properties, 33 closings, and that was multiple units. So we had like 50 or 60 units that year that we bought. Some were flips, some were holds. The problem was we grew really fast. And can you see any problems with growing really fast? Can you imagine anything that would happen maybe if you grow too fast? Well, we had a lot of money in the bank, but we had this thing called the Great Recession that was coming at the end of 2007, 2008, 2009, which I wasn't smart enough to foresee. I'm not sure anybody was. The problem was we bought some properties, we got sloppy. We bought properties in locations that were not quite as good. We were new. We underestimated repairs on a lot of properties. We didn't run the numbers correctly, which is one reason if you watch my YouTube channel, I run the numbers all the time. I like showing people how to run the numbers and making it simple. The point was we made a lot of mistakes, which is normal. We all make mistakes. But when you make mistakes and fast forward in motion, you make big mistakes and you make more mistakes. So at the end of this year, I'll kind of summarize this story as we survived. We had to hustle. We had a little bit of luck, but we survived the Great Recession. But it really made me think that year. We were so busy, and I was kind of nervous about what's going to happen. And I saw the risk of what happens if you grow too quickly. And my business partner, more than myself, said, hey, we need to slow down and think about this. And we did this exercise at the end of 2007 where we started asking ourselves, why are we investing in the first place? We had borrowed that goal from a seminar, $1 million per year, 50 properties per year, but it was exciting, but why? Why do we want to do this? And so we did this exercise, and this is one of those takeaway moments. I recommend you do this exercise and then repeat it over and over again. We wrote down a list. My business partner did it independently. I did it myself. What are the reasons you're investing in real estate? And I want to get specific with this. If you could wave your magic wand and you had as much money as you needed, money's taken care of, what would you do with your time? What matters to you? What's important to you? And so here's my list. I want to tell you specifically what I wrote down as a 27-year-old in 2017. I want to play basketball for 2 hours in the middle of the day. Any other pickup basketball players in the room? All right, Mike, I know Mike's down. Okay, a few more. I want to hike to nearby waterfalls whenever the weather's nice. So if you're in California or in Hawaii, the surf's up, you go surf. In South Carolina, if you have a blue sky and a nice day, we go hike. I wanted to go hike in the middle of the day. Clemson's got beautiful forests, waterfalls, hiking trails. I wanted to take advantage of that. I wanted to travel to other countries for extended periods of time. I read this book called Vagabonding back in the day, and it was about not just going on vacations, but actually traveling slowly and living somewhere and immersing yourself in the culture, learning a language. I was hooked. I wanted to do that, but I needed time to do that. I wanted to learn something new. I'm a learner. I'm a student. I love learning about real estate, but I also like learning about other stuff that's impractical. It has nothing to do with making more money. I just want to learn. I want to take classes. I want to learn Spanish, which I've done over the last few years. That was one of my goals. I wanted to teach, write, and share with others. I found that my calling as a teacher now, that's why I'm here. That's why I flew all the way across the country. I love teaching. I get a high out of it. I enjoy when you get it, and I get to see you get it. So I wanted to do that. And I was just getting married that year in 2007, and we thought we might have kids at some point. And I figured if I'm going to have kids, I want to be present. I don't want to be the parent who, sometimes you can't be there, you got to work. But if I have the luxury of being there, I want to be there. I want to coach their volleyball team. I want to be involved in their lives. That was the last one. So these are my goals. Now, notice something. How many of those need money to do it? A couple of them. Travel requires money. But it's a pretty limited thing. In 2009, we went to South America, and we spent $20,000. I mean, that's a lot. It was a lot of money at the time for us. We chose to spend $20,000 on that instead of buying a new car. Money, right? But time was the bigger challenge. On all of these things, playing basketball in the middle of the day, hiking, doing these things, it was about the time and the flexibility. I realized Frankenstein, the business beast, was eating all my time, eating all my flexibility, and we had to change our business model. We had to change our approach. We couldn't just buy into success equals more. Success equals more properties. Success equals bigger. It wasn't working for me. And so I realized, I didn't call it this at the time, but there's this small and mighty real estate investing model. I read a book by a guy named John Shaw, Building Wealth One House at a Time. He's been a mentor of mine, a model of mine. He kind of helped me out with this idea. But more freedom is small and mighty. So I want to tell you real quickly what small and mighty business model is, what it means. Number one, it's about the size of your business. Now, a little misnomer, when you write a book called The Small and Mighty Investor, everybody thinks that, well, you have to have 5 properties or 4 properties. It doesn't necessarily mean that. What it means is own the minimum number of properties that you need to accomplish all of your goals. I'll say that again. Own the minimum number of properties. Usually success means own the most properties, right? 10x, go big. You're not fulfilling your potential unless you own 1,000 units. What I'm saying is maybe 1,000 units is your number. But maybe 4 properties is your number. Maybe 10 properties is your number. And so it's a goal of elegance. It's a goal of simplicity. In science, I was a biology major in college. There's this rule called Occam's razor, which basically means any theory you have, the best theory is the simplest one. The thing that explains success the simplest is the best one. And so the real estate investing strategy, for me at least, that is the best one, is the simplest one, is the one that has the least number of properties. But it's not just about size, it's also about how you grow and the pace of growth that you have. So we all have to grow. Like if you have 0 properties, you got to get big. I don't care if you want to have 5 properties, 10 properties, or 100. So you got to start growing, and growing's fine. But the approach, the small, mighty approach, is to grow at a more reasonable pace. The idea here is if you ever seen somebody, or maybe some of you have done this, run an ultra marathon, like these 50, 60-mile races. And have you ever seen somebody at the beginning of like a 5K race who's not training for a 5K race? And at the very beginning of the race, they're at the beginning with all the really fast people, and they sprint for the first like half mile. And then I pass them, because I'm in the very back, I pass them about 1.5 miles because they're on the side of the road, tired. That's the sprint at the beginning. That's me in my sprint in 2007. It's not sustainable. And so a small and mighty approach to growth is to be sustainable. And I like to compare it to a hike, because I like to hike. Let's say like financial freedom, like your ultimate goal here is at the top of the mountain. You're here at the bottom of the mountain, which we all have to start somewhere. Well, if you climb, you could go sprint to the top of the mountain. You could go straight to the top of Everest, but that's not a good idea. Like mountain climbers know, you don't go straight to the top. You got to acclimatize yourself, and you got to take your time. And what's been the best decision I've ever made in my entire career of 21 years is this idea of taking plateaus along the way. So you climb. You have this intense season of growth. Maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 4 years, but you're on. You're growing, you're buying properties, you're focusing, you're intense. You do that for a season in your life, and then you take a break. Now, your break could be what I do. I like to take mini retirements. I like to go travel somewhere. And initially, you might not be able to get away from your job for long periods. Maybe you can do that for 2 weeks. Maybe you can negotiate 4 weeks. Eventually, maybe you can negotiate 4 months. I specifically remember my wife when she was asking, she's a Spanish professor, and she was so nervous asking her community college supervisor to take the whole fall off for that trip we went to South America. She thought she was going to lose her job. She thought she was going to get yelled at. And she walked into her supervisor's office, and her supervisor's she could tell how nervous she was. She thought she was about to quit. She thought there's something wrong. She asked if she could have 4 months off, and the supervisor's like, oh, yeah, that's fine, fine. And she was like, do you want health insurance while you're gone? She was like, my wife had nothing to say. She's like, I just couldn't believe it. So negotiating time off and using that time, whether you want to travel, whether you want to start a backyard garden, maybe you want to go back to take a class, maybe you just want to relax and sit on a beach, that's cool. Like whatever you want to do, take some breaks along the way, mini retirements, plateaus, and then you get back to climbing. And you can climb again and again. And really, the climb never ends. Like, I've reached a point of financial freedom. I like to keep growing, though. I like to be in the game. I like to be in business. But it's a little different when along the way you can take these breaks. Instead of waiting to the end of your life to enjoy the fruits of retirement, why not enjoy it now and then along the way and along the way? It's been one of the best decisions that we've ever made. And yes, maybe you won't make as much money as the person next to you who climbs the entire time, but who's counting, right? Who are you counting in the number of experiences you have, or if you have $30 million in the bank instead of $10 million? Really what I'm talking about here is this concept of enough. This is not an easy concept. It's hard for me to this day, but it's this idea that's really difficult in the United States in particular of saying, I've got enough. I've got enough money so that I can then start capitalizing on the other currencies of time and of flexibility. And this is a concept I got from one of my favorite financial books called Your Money or Your Life. And it's the idea that the first money you make is amazing. It buys you food, it buys you survival, it puts heat in your house. That you get a lot of return on happiness for that first dollar. And then maybe the second dollar and the $100th and the $100,000th, you still get a lot of happiness. But at some point, when you start buying more stuff, there's a diminishing return. You get a little bit less happiness, and you get this stuff called clutter. And you have a boat, but you have to maintain this boat, and you have this second house and this third house. But you got to worry about it. Somebody's going to steal it. Somebody's going to break it. And so you start getting a little bit less happy. And there actually is a point, and everybody's unique, where you have enough. And it's an elusive goal, but that's my goal, is to find that place called enough. And I'll kind of finish my story here to say, this is my reality. This is 2022 and 2023. Remember my list, and I have a now 13-year-old and a 11-year-old daughter, 2 daughters, and we lived in Spain for a year. So we've taken other trips as well, but we left in July of 2022, came back in July of 2023. We lived in Granada, Spain, and I took Spanish classes again. I've learned Spanish several times, so puedo hablar, pero no necesito practicar. But I went to Spanish classes every day. These are my amigos from soccer. I played soccer every Thursday night. I was looking for a basketball group, and they play a lot of soccer in Spain. And so I played soccer every Thursday night. The name of this group was called Buscando Cervezas. So we played for an hour, and then we drank beer for 2 hours. So these are my buddies. Good. It was a good time. And I did find a basketball group at some point. They do play basketball in Spain as well, and it was amazing. I have friends there. Made amazing connections. My kids are fluent in Spanish now. We hiked the Camino de Santiago, which is that top left there. Have you ever heard of that? It's an old pilgrimage route across the north of Spain. We hiked part of it, and we hiked it with some friends. Amazing experience as a family. I wrote a book while I was there because I can't totally do nothing while I'm somewhere else. And then we lived together in Granada. So that's my story. My challenge to you is to figure out what that is for yourself. And how you can do that. I want to get to questions because we got 20 more minutes here, but I want to leave you with some numbers. I have to talk about numbers as I always do on my channel. Financial independence, this idea we're talking about, is a number. It's when your investment income from real estate is more than your needs, whatever those needs are. And there's a few different paths along there. Remember I said you can go to plateaus. I recommend that you figure out what your numbers are. And whatever they are, no judgment here, whether they're $500,000 a year, $60,000 a year. But there's these ideas. You can have a lean financial independence number, just your bare minimum number, just to cover your basic expenses, regular financial independence, and maybe even fat financial independence, where you pay for luxuries and have some cushion there. That's okay. But these are the kind of goals you can set for yourself. And I know these numbers might not work for everybody. Feel free to double or triple them if you're higher. But maybe your lean fin number is $30,000. Maybe your real estate, or your regular financial independence is $60,000 a year. Maybe your fat financial independence is $120,000 a year. The point is, this is one of those exercises. It's important to have some clarity on what this is, so that you know what your enough is. How much do you really need? Then I want to give you a couple ideas here. I'm not going to go into detail on these. These are the kind of things you can see in the book or go into in my channel. But there's a number that's a lot smaller than you think. This is a spreadsheet here with 5 properties, and we could 4 properties. I mentioned Mike in the book. One of my main principles of being a small, mighty investor is just get to 4. If you get to 4, maybe 5 properties, I wanted to show what the numbers look like with that. If you own 5 properties and eventually you paid them off, just a simple scenario like that, if they rented for $1,800 a piece, and you had about a little bit under $800 in expenses every month. You didn't have a mortgage payment because you paid your debt off, right? You'd have $1,170 per month in income per property, almost $6,000 per month, or $70,000 per year in income from 5 properties. $70,000 per year. If you want more than that, do 10 properties, right? This is a small number of properties for a full-time amount of income for a lot of people in the United States. And so just think about that. Think about that when you're setting your goals. And if you want a little bit more, and if you're in the, I can't believe you're talking about paying off debt, Chad, camp, then, okay, here's somebody with 50 units, and they have $10,000 per month as well, almost. They have some debt on the properties, but they go for some multi-unit properties. And there's something for everybody, right? There's a place to go. I'm somewhere in between there. Now, my business partner and I have about 20% loan-to-value debt on our properties still today. Most of those are private loans, seller financing, ones I just can't bring myself to pay off because they're 3% interest or 0% interest, just really good loans. The point is there's a portfolio for you that you can have that meets your financial independence number. So be thinking about your questions if you want to line up here, but I'm going to close here with a story. The story is one of my favorite stories about a business person. Let's call him a real estate investor who was busy and stressed, as many business people are who are ambitious. And he decided to take a vacation to Mexico. I love Mexico. I love traveling to Mexico. And he went on the coast of Mexico to his little fishing village to relax. The very first morning in town, though, he has an emergency call in the morning back at home to his business, stressful call. But he gets off the phone that morning. He's like, finally, I can just go take a walk on the beach. And so he's walking along the beach, and the first thing he comes across is a fishing boat already coming in, first thing in the morning. And the Mexican fisherman has two big, huge yellowfish tuna in the back of his fishing boat. And so the fisherman was impressed by this, and he said, wow, that's amazing. Congratulations on your catch. How long did it take you to find those fish? And the fisherman said, not very long. And the businessman kind of, as he always did, smelled an opportunity here. He said, well, what are you going to do the rest of your day? And the fisherman said, well, I'll clean the fish, and then I'll walk my kids to school. I'll work on some of my hobbies in the morning. I might take a siesta with my wife midday, and then in the afternoon, I'll walk into the village, and I'll sip a couple beers and strum the guitar with my amigos. And he said, I live a very full life. Well, the businessman still couldn't let this go. He's smelling another opportunity. He kind of cleared his throat, and he said, I've been in business for a long time, and I think I can help you out. He said, if you work the rest of the day, you could catch more fish. And if you caught more fish, you could sell those fish for cash, and you'd have cash flow. And if you use that cash flow, you could hire more fishermen and more boats to catch even more fish and make even more cash flow, and you could scale your business. And the fisherman respectfully listened to him, and he said, well, what then? He said, well, then, because you have so many fish, you can start opening your own cannery to control the production. And then you can start distributing it straight to people who want to eat fish. He said, now that you have this big business and you control the fish and the production, the distribution, you can have your own company. You'll probably have to move to Mexico City or maybe even LA or New York to hire management to manage your growing empire. And the Mexican fisherman said, well, what's next? He said, well, that's the best part. Now that you have somebody managing your big business, you can go public. You can sell it, and you'll make millions of dollars. You'll be rich. And the fisherman said, I'll be rich, okay. Well, what next? And the businessman said, well, then you can retire. You can move to the Pacific coast in a small village. Every morning, you can take your grandkids to school. You can work on your hobbies. You can take a siesta with your wife. And in the evening, you can strum guitar and sip a couple beers with your amigos. So really what I've been talking about here is not about investing. It's not about money. It's about living a good life. What this fisherman knew was what mattered to him. He had that clear, and he didn't let getting scale and getting big get in the way of what actually mattered to him. So I hope you also think about that, and I'm encouraging you to start with what matters to you, and then let's build a real estate business around that. I've gone a little bit over here, but I want to do some questions, so really appreciate y'all listening to me.
Good morning, Coach.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm Athena, and you mentioned strategies to pay off debt. So for time purposes, what would be your top strategy that you would recommend?
Yeah, there's a couple main ways. Anybody ever heard of the debt snowball? So these are not complicated, but in personal finance world, if you wanted to pay off all your credit card debts, you could do something by just listing your debts from smallest to largest and start paying off your smallest debt first. That's one approach. There's another approach that's a variation on that, where you can list all of your debts, start paying off the one with the highest interest, even if it's a bigger debt. There's arguments to both of those, but the point I'm going to make here is I've heard of a lot of people, they'll try to pay extra payments on all their mortgages. So like you say you have 5 mortgages and you make an extra $500 payment per month or something like that. My recommendation is don't do that. Is to save all of your cash flow and then attack one debt at a time. That's the magic of a debt snowball. Attack one debt at a time and do the math on this when you get home. It's amazing how quickly you can pay a debt off if you attack it with an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a month. Just one debt. You can, instead of paying 30-year debt, you can pay it off in 6 years, 7 years. And so that's kind of a primary tool as a debt snowball. The other one that I like a lot is called overbuying. So let's take our couple who has 5 properties. So maybe they don't buy 5 properties, maybe they buy 10 properties. But the second 5 properties aren't ideal long-term rentals. They're more like they're not short-term rentals like Airbnb. They're going to hold them for a short period of time. And maybe these are California properties. They have a lot of equity, but not much cash flow. And then they sell those properties and then use the equity, pay taxes on the properties, and then pay off the other properties with the sales proceeds from the second 5.
Oh, okay. So sell some of them off and then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We call that, we've done that in our portfolio. We call it like pruning your portfolio. You overbuy, you buy too many properties, but like a gardener or a farmer with a fruit tree, you prune up your tree, and that makes your whole portfolio healthier in the end. So debt snowballs, overbuying, paying them off. Yeah, and those are a couple ways. There's a couple, if you read my book, I have a couple other variations of like refinancing one property to pay off another property once you build enough equity in them. There's some other ideas there too.
Do you have your books here with you, or where do I buy your book?
Bigger Pockets.
Bigger Pockets? Okay.
I think I had a clicker there.
Yeah, I'd love
Yeah, Bigger
I'd
Pockets,
read it.
Amazon, Audible, it's out there. But yeah, I have a whole chapter on how to pay off debt faster and how to do that with rental properties, and also when you shouldn't pay off debt. It's an idea I didn't talk about during the call, or during this presentation, was that there's different phases of your real estate journey. So you can roughly say 3 phases. You have a starter phase, a wealth builder phase, and an ender or a harvester phase. The starter phase, you're just trying to get in the game. Get your house hacked, get your foot in the door, just get in the game. The wealth builder phase is taking, like, if you have $100,000 in equity, try to turn that into $1 million in equity. And it's all about leverage, it's all about growth. And the starter phase and the wealth building phase is typically not the best time to pay off debt. It's when you want to start taking some chips off the table is when it makes more sense to do that. And it's not an optimization growth strategy, it's a life optimization strategy where you're optimizing for lifestyle, income, reducing risk. It doesn't mean you're going to make the most money, but that's not our goal in the phase 3. Our goal in phase 3 is to have lifestyle and travel and have peace of mind and sleep well at night. So that's the idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Athena. Yeah.
Thank you, Coach.
Yeah.
I have your book, but I forgot. I didn't know you were coming. I would have got your signature.
No problem.
So my question is, how can I figure out what's my financial independence number from those 3?
Yeah, my recommendation, don't try to be too exact with it. This is one of those things, if you're an engineer type person or a spreadsheet type person, which I am, I'm susceptible to this, you might try to like spend hours figuring out like what's the exact number I need. I think you could do this in 10 minutes. By looking, especially if you already have a budget, like do you know how much you spend every year? Mm-hmm. Start with that. And if you want to have a fat FI number, just multiply that times 1.25. Take 25% more. And if you want to be really conservative, 50% more. Like just pick a number. For me, my numbers, when my wife and I first got married, we're pretty frugal. We're like in the financial independence movement. We spent $3,000 a month. We lived in a 4-plex. We house hacked, super cheap. We had kids that almost doubled, $5,000, $6,000 a month. We live a little bit higher on the hog now, but we never spend more than $10,000 a month today. That's my number. That's not a number for you. You have to pick your own number, but I know my expenses, and then I just work it backwards and say fat FI, regular FI, lean FI. And lean FI is a really important number because that's what would, if you had enough income coming in to pay your health insurance, to pay your mortgage, to pay just some basic necessities, not going out to eat, not going on travel, not all those extra things. That's a really nice place to get to because you can take a deep breath. You know you got the basics taken care of. And so don't underrate that because that's when you can go on those mini retirements. That's when you can take a break. And it's a long grind. Doing the work is hard work, but it takes a while. Even a 10-year journey, which is kind of fast in the big picture, is a grind. So I think having those little milestones is really nice.
Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome. Good morning. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. You talk about in your channel about other ways of creative financing, especially seller financing. And then my question to you is, what was the best ways that you found those deals on seller financing? How do you find them? They can be the best, they can be not the best, but what is your ways of doing
Okay.
that?
Questions about seller financing. I'm going to go back to a slide I have here because it's a good story that'll answer that question a little bit. This is Ed and Eileen. This was a closing when I was 24, 25 years old. The very first property that I bought was seller financing. It was my second rental property, and I bought from Ed and Eileen. And I'll explain the strategy, but I'll tell the story first. I was sending letters out to properties, which is one of my strategies to buy properties. I sent them out to, I start with a buy box, a lot like Michael does too. You'd establish what kind of property you want, where you want it, and I send letters out to different lists within that buy box. This couple had owned a rental property for a long time. It used to be their residence. They'd owned it for a long time. It had been a rental property for a year or two. A tenant moved out, tore the property up, stopped paying them. They decided we're not cut out to be landlords. We didn't study one rental at a time. They didn't study Coach Carson's stuff. They didn't know how to be landlords. And so they fixed it up. They decided to sell it. They called me off my letter and said, hey, and Eileen, who has a twinkle in her eye, she's an amazing, wise person. They both were retired Methodist ministers, didn't have a lot of money because they had not been super wealthy. This house meant a lot. They had moved to another house as a little small retirement cabin on a little pond nearby. She said, I got your letter. I was about to list my house with a real estate agent. She said to never talk to somebody like that. There's an investor. They're going to rip you off. But she said, I looked you up on Google, and I think I want to meet with you. And so we met. The house was vacant. They brought little card tables with them, set them up in the living room. And she said, we're just going to talk and tell each other's stories. I said, okay. I'm a rookie little investor. I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, sounds good to me. This must be what I'm supposed to do. I heard their stories. I told them about my story. We eventually got to buying the property. But I told them, I'm a new investor. I don't really know what I'm doing here. But I said they wanted to sell this property. It's a $130,000 property. They wanted as much as they could get. But they said, we'll take $120,000, $115,000 maybe. And I said, I can't pay you $115,000. I could pay you about $90,000 if I had to go out and get a hard money loan or private money loan. But what I could do, I had just been at a seminar learning about seller financing. Turn my screen off. I could buy this property from you. Did I do that? I could buy this property from you and give you $2,000 down and pay you $550 a month for years into the future. And I could do that because I could afford to rent this property. I'm not making any money on the price, but I like your property. I want to hold it. I think it'll be good for me long run. But you would get that $550 instead of me going and paying it to the bank. And that's exactly how I explained it. And the reason I want to tell you that story is seller financing, if you approach it like as an engineer or as an investor with spreadsheets and math, don't even mention seller financing. Don't even mention it until you make an offer. At least that's my approach. You learn their story. You listen to Eileen and Ed. They listen to you. They have to trust you because trust is the currency of financing. When you go to a bank, you apply with an application and all that stuff. Trust is still important. But for sellers, in this case, Ed and Eileen, they need to know you and trust you. Are you going to make the payments? Are you a good person? Can they work with you? And they ended up trusting me. They used that $550 a month. I paid them for many years. And I've since bought a lot of properties with seller financing. And not every seller is the same, but I use a very similar approach. A slow dance. Talk to them. But the way you reach these, most people who own properties will not seller finance a property. The typical people who will do it are former landlords, people who already have been getting income for many, many years. They like income. What's the one thing that landlords who are are motivated to sell a property, why are they probably selling the property? Tenants, toilets, management. It's a management problem. So my conversation with them was like, I will give you $550 a month for 10 years into the future. You will never deal with a tenant again. You'll never hear from a tenant again. You'll never have a vacancy again. Every month on the first of the month, you'll get a payment from me. That's it. So they got the income they liked, they got the property they liked as collateral, and they didn't have to deal with the tenants. So the key to seller financing is telling a story and wrapping seller financing in that story. And the end of the story with Ed and Eileen was kind of cool. They ended up being the ministers at my wedding when I married my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty cool, huh? So the other thing I'll say about seller financing private lenders, almost all of my transactions have been with individuals and not with banks. I love it. I'm a small, mighty investor because I like paying individuals whose retirement depends on me. I don't know about you, but I don't get a warm and fuzzy paying the banks. I don't get excited writing a check to insurance companies. It's just a bill. It's just something I have to do. But when I write a check to Ed and Eileen and I know they're using that to pay for their house, and this is a real person, and when I'm paying a check to a private lender who's using that to pay their groceries, that makes me excited. I want to keep paying them. When I pay them off, they're like, no, don't pay me off. Like, I need that money. I need that interest. So that's a lot different. It's a different story.
Coach, you mentioned they found you on Google like as part of the trust. Can you tell us about it?
They just looked me up on.
Present?
I guess I didn't have. We talked about Google yesterday. I think Sean was talking about that. One of the reasons to have a good presence is the first thing people do, they look you up on Google, right? Fair or not, they judge a book by a cover. So having some videos on YouTube, if you want to say who you are, what you're all about, a website presence. That's really, I mean, this was kind of in the early days, 2004. I don't know what they found on me. I think I had my football pictures and that kind of stuff on there, but it worked, right?
It worked. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, good morning.
I've actually never seen your YouTube video, but I'm going to start watching them now.
Awesome, thank you.
So this is kind of a question. I have two young boys, kind of young, 19 and 20, and I know they're going to love your stuff, so I'm going to turn them on to it whenever
Thank you.
get home. My younger son just got his real estate license in Austin, and who were your mentors, and who did you look towards to know that you wanted to do real estate investing? Because I'm trying to. Yeah. We have one rental in Austin. I'm trying to kind of talk them through why investment is important.
Yeah. Number one, my dad. I was fortunate that my dad had rental properties. But when I was in 8th grade, my dad used to drop me off with my brother who was in 6th grade and say, we just bought this property, son. It's got a bunch of trash in the house and a bunch of trash in the backyard. He's like, come, I'll be back in 3 hours, clean all this trash up. Yeah. I'm like, 8th grader, typical, ungrateful 8th grader. I'm like, real estate, hate this stuff, and I'll never do this. And then I started graduated from college, and I'm like, biology, doctor, work for the institution, be my own boss. Dad, who do I know who did that? All right. So being an investor yourself, I think, is number one. That's your number one mentor. But also just having books on your shelf, making them listen to podcasts from Michael or me or somebody in the car. They'll grumble about it, but they'll listen to it. They'll absorb it, and they'll understand. My daughters, my happiest day was I was playing the cash flow game, the Rich Dad cash flow game, which is a really good game, by the way. And I was playing with them, and my daughter, in that game you draw cards, and it's a real estate-focused game, by the way. And my daughter drew a card that said, you can get a CD in a bank at 3% interest. And my older daughter was like, why would I get an investment that only makes 3% interest? And I was like, exactly. So that's you play some games with them, be yourself. I'm not a parenting expert, but the thing that I always appreciated was they watch what you do. They don't listen to you. Right. So just be yourself. Cool. Yep. Good morning.
Morning. How you doing?
Doing fine. How are you?
Good, thank you. So my business partner, Jordan, who's here as well, I think we're at that point where you were 03 to 07. Mm-hmm. For you, what was that catalyst, I guess specifically with the financing, for you to start being able to scale? Right. And I know you pulled back after, but those first 4 years. Yeah,
so for me, scaling was a little bit, everybody's got a different situation. We didn't have a day job, so we didn't have W-2 income. Mm-hmm. We also didn't have DSCR loans, which I like a lot now. But what we did was private money, 90%, and that's my approach. It's a little slower to get in the game with private money, but think about if you can find I call it lazy money investors. If even a group like this, there are people in the room who've been in the game, who like investing, but who are like me. They want to work 2 hours per week and go travel and do other stuff, but they have money in the bank. And so you look for these individuals who can be your bank. The more money they have, the better. And so I found 5 or 6 individuals. A guy named Dr. Stone was my business professor at school, and they either financed the deals directly for me with their money, and I learned things like I studied self-directed retirement accounts. Is anybody familiar with that? Anybody done that before? Well, as a 23-year-old kid, I learned about this and became an expert in that. And I went to my business professor, who was a lot smarter than me and everything else, but he didn't know about self-directed retirement accounts. And I taught him. I was like, hey, how much money do you have in a retirement account? He's like, well, $1 million or so. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, have you ever wanted to put some of that in real estate? And he's like, well, my CPA told me I couldn't do that. I'm like, wrong. No, you can. And I don't want to make I didn't say it that way, but I showed him, here's the statute, here's the company, here's these custodians. And so he moved some of his money, several $100,000, to a self-directed retirement account, and he loaned it to me at 10% interest over and over and over again. And eventually we hit 2008, and I said, I can't pay you 10% interest anymore. I'm going to give you all your money back. He's like, no, what else can we do? And I started paying him 6% interest, and that became kind of my go-to. 6% interest, 15-year loan, interest only, maybe a 30-year AM, and I did that over and over again to scale on rental properties.
Got it.
So that's my approach, but I use seller financing as well. I use some commercial bank financing. So I look at financing like a toolbox. You have a lot of different tools in your toolbox. There's no tool that's better than the other. You need to have the tool that's best for you. But when you're scaling, you need to have a lot of tools in the toolbox. Get everything you can, every financing tool you can, but don't forget about private money, seller financing. They take a little bit longer to learn and how to do it, but it's long run, it's paid off big time for me.
Yeah, and for your investors, it was mainly or strictly interest only. It was never equity.
Yeah, I like to keep it simple.
Yeah.
I've done equity deals as well, but just do interest. If you can just do the simplest business model possible. Loaning money is the simplest scenario. It avoids issues. When you do raising equity, often you get into SEC kind of guidelines and different. I know there's ways to deal with that. You can hire attorneys to do that, but you can hire a local attorney to prepare a promissory note and a mortgage for you, and it's super simple.
Yeah.
And it's also easy to understand. I have this rule that if your private lender or my wife, for example, she works with me in the business, but she's not the real estate person, I'm the real estate person. If I can explain a deal to her in 3 minutes and she can explain it back to me, and she's smart, she gets it, but if she's not the real estate person, if she can get it in 3 minutes, it's simple enough. If she's like, I don't understand what you're talking about, then that's kind of a gauge that I've gotten too crazy, too creative. You either need to get better at explaining it, or you need to get simpler with it. And so I think the simplest way to do it, private loans, notes, and eventually there might be a case. If you got one person who has $1 million and they want to fund all your deals, and you can form an LLC with them, that makes sense too.
Yeah.
But it just depends on who you have.
Yeah, because I think we resonate a lot with the goals that you have, and we both have W-2 jobs that we actually enjoy, but sometimes they do conflict with those goals, right? Yeah,
I mean conventional loans first. If you got a W-2, go with what you got. Use conventional loans, use 20% down payments, max those out until you can't, and then you start looking at commercial loans, DSCR, private money, all the other stuff after that. Depends on your numbers. That might be everything you need, just right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Buenos dias.
Good morning. Buenos dias, Chad. I have two questions. The first one is, what is that decision-making process, if you can describe, to enjoy those mini retirements, right?
Yeah.
What factors are taken in consideration? Because I'm thinking about the girls, how that impact their school rotation and their likes also.
We just screwed our kids up. I don't know. No, that's part of, I think what you're asking is just logistics maybe a little bit, like how it worked,
Right.
Yeah. So, I'll give you last year. We like to, slow travel is what kind of I mentioned we do. The benefit of slow travel is we don't have to be on the road all the time. We went to Spain and we enrolled in school there. When we went to Ecuador, we did the same thing. When they were 3 and 5, we enrolled them in local schools. So we just go to another place and do the same thing we always do. If they go to dance class, they go to dance class. I do my basketball, I do my basketball. And so it's pretty cool just to plop yourself down in another place, rent a house, stay in a neighborhood, get to know the neighbors. So it's a lot easier actually than you think. It's, when we went to Ecuador, we sort of just threw a dart at a map and said, I've heard Ecuador is cool. We actually wanted to go to Argentina originally, but then we were like, it's a little farther away, a little more expensive. And a friend told us about Ecuador. We're like, that sounds amazing, Cuenca, Ecuador. And so we went there not knowing if we'd stay or not. Yeah, Cuenca. ¿Conoce? So we loved it once we got there, and we stayed. But we didn't know where we were going to stay. This is like it's the antithesis. Like when I go to Disney, I just get cringes because you have to plan every single minute. We don't plan anything. We just show up. Like helicopter in, figure it out. We do a lot of research, but we don't have any more than a week out. We have no plans. We just are flexible. That's our style. I know that's not for everybody, but The logistics were get a visa. That was really hard to get in Spain. South America was a little bit Ecuador was a little bit easier to get a visa. Spain, we had to go through a lot of processes. We had to enroll our kids in school, and so that was a logistic process. We did a little bit in Spain. We had to hire a consultant basically to help us enroll in school there locally. And then logistically, what else? Money is pretty easy these days. You just get your debit card and you go to a bank wherever you are in the world and get your money out. You can also use the equivalent of Venmo in different countries. Bizum is what they use in Europe. You can get one of those. So there's some fun logistics there, but school was the big one, and our idea was just to keep our kids in the activities they already do, to try to keep some normalcy. My kids do music, volleyball, sports, things like that, and so we're just like, hey, we're doing the same thing, and it was a big, abrupt change for them to be in school, but it was also worked out.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
The second question is, with that choice of lifestyle, right? How can you compartmentalize and be comfortable saying no to many other temptations out there, right? As entrepreneur, we want to keep ourselves busy.
I have a hard time. I'm still going through the AA meetings for Entrepreneurs Anonymous, I will say, I know we got to get rolling here, but real quick story. It took me 6 weeks to finally relax on my first mini retirement. I'm an A-type driven person. I like the game. I love it. I played football, and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm never going to stop being an entrepreneur. The thing is, that's why mini retirements are so nice. It's not a permanent decision. It's a temporary decision, and then you get back in the game. And for me, I'm in the game now of online business. Real estate's cool, and I like it, but I have a simple real estate business, but I like teaching. I like having, so if you see my YouTube channel, I'm not as ambitious as Michael. All right, Michael publishes 5 times a day. I publish 1 time a week, but they're highly produced. They take more time. I write articles. I do a newsletter. I teach classes. That's what I enjoy doing. So there's always an outlet for your ambition. But what I think is cool, and this is a whole other topic, but there's this idea that when you have financial independence, there's also these things you can do that don't make money that our society needs. Right. For example, I'm really into my community in Clemson, and I identified some problems in our community, being on the planning commission. For example, everything's built around automobiles in our little small southern town, and I like to walk. And so I would push my kids in a stroller across the street to the park, almost get run over by a truck. I'm like, how come I can't go a quarter mile to my park and walk there? And I asked everybody in the city. Nobody had any good answers. Everybody knew it was important. And so I decided with another entrepreneur to start a nonprofit called the Friends of the Green Crescent Trail, which is building a network of trails around the town. This is 2014, 15. I had no idea how hard it is to change local government policy. But last year, we built our first 3 miles of trails. We raised $2 million. We are building those trails in town. We got a map, a master plan. 100% of the city council's on board now. So that's the kind of thing that I don't want to make any money from that. But that's an ambitious thing.
And that's during your off season.
That's my off season, yeah.
Great, awesome.
Yeah, that's what I'm busier than ever, but I'm planning these other ideas. And so that's, when I say what matters, there's people out here who should be teaching elementary school kids. There's people who should be working with charities. There's people who, that's your thing. Real estate's not your thing. But these other things are your thing, and real estate can give you the freedom and the flexibility and the time to do that. And if you're not some of us are just real estate people. We love it. Some of you just need to buy 5 properties, make $70,000 a year, and go do what you're meant to do the rest of your life. And that's cool. And that kind of fits within the small, mighty approach to me.
Thank you so much. And very, very sincerely, thank you for your generosity of joining Michael. That was a long time past due.
Thank you.
Because both of you team up incredibly.
I feel fortunate that Michael lets me do it, so thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I have a 3-part question in Spanish. Just kidding.
Perfecto.
No.
Vamos.
I'm kidding. No, but you did pique my interest on the mini vacations. Yeah. I didn't even, awesome. Thank you for that. And it all got me thinking about when you're in Spain, for example. You said you were there for about a year.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's something I would love if we can convince my husband to get us out there.
I'll work on him at lunch.
But how, with the time difference, how did you manage the things here in the States or phone calls here in the States while you're out there? Are you doing these at 1 in the morning, or is there something that you're using?
Yeah, one of my favorite ideas of time management is to say no to a lot of stuff and cancel a lot of stuff. So I don't do a lot of phone calls. My property managers text me or email me, and I do try to get back. My property managers are my go-to people. So if they haven't, you'd be surprised if you're in go mode and growth mode, we spend a lot of time on the phone. We're buying properties from people. We're raising money. But when you have a stable portfolio of rentals, and I'm going to test myself here. For those of you who have a steady portfolio of rentals right now, not counting buying the properties and financing them, just the management of the properties, how many of you spend 5 hours per month or less on your rental properties? Raise the hands. All right. How about 10 hours per month or less? Let's get everybody in the room. 10 hours per month, that's a big number of the people in the room. And my point is, I guess, that it's really a small amount of time you actually need to manage and do things if you own rental properties. So for me, I would have an occasional call, but it was not much. And I would text, some of the times my property manager says, hey, we had this heating and air unit that went out. It's over $500. Can we do it? Yes. Yes. Do it. Okay. And they do it. So it's really a lot less than you think. And being in Europe is actually kind of nice because they're 6, 7 hours ahead. So it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Nobody in the U.S. is bothering me. Nobody. It's like, nice. I'm writing. This is when I wrote my book. This is when I take strolls in Ecuador or Spain. So it's really actually nice being abroad because you can say, I'm in Spain. Sorry, can't be there for that meeting. And so it kind of takes you away, and it forces your people on your team to handle it, deal with it. And so that's been part of my strategy.
Got it. So you give your property manager maybe like a specific amount, saying if it's under 1,000, go for it. If it's not, then reach out.
Start off at 250, then I went to 300, then I went to 500.
Nice.
I might raise it to 1,000, maybe. You got to trust your people and let them do it. If they don't earn your trust, I still pay attention to what they're doing. If they break my trust, then we got to talk about it. I got to teach them. We got to learn. But I would rather have my peace of mind than make a little bit more money. That's just that's me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, not bad, right? Start day 2. Coach Carson. It's funny, when I bought this gift for the speakers, I was like, this guy, he actually might have one of these, right? Linebacker for the Clemson. But I don't know. Do you have a championship belt? Oh, there you go. There you go. All right, folks, let's blow up Instagram. Take your pictures with him wearing the belt.